Hi, everyone. Welcome to Crime in Court. This is the Menendez brothers' Path to Freedom, and we are talking about California versus Eric and Lyle Menendez, who have been serving the last 35 years in prison for the homicides of their parents, Kitty and Jose. They have pretty much ever since ever since their first trial, they have been sticking to the fact that they were severely maltreated by Jose and Kitty, not just Jose, but Kitty as well, and living in that constant fear for their basically their entire lives led them to the actions that they took that night in 1989. So we are now, we've been going through all of the resentencing documents and things like that. So at this point, the resentencing hearing has finally taken place. This is a very exciting episode for me to be streaming. I'm not feeling the greatest, so if I'm not showing my excitement as much as I feel it, but I'm just not I'm not feeling the greatest today. But I am super excited to announce that Eric and Lyle have been resentenced. Judge Jessic has seen through the bull that Huckman has been putting forth for the last I don't know 5 6 months. He is back since December. He's been talking about the Menendez brothers in a very negative light and misrepresenting facts of the case. In fact, he continues to say that the maltreatment never happened, and so basically denying survivors their their experiences, which is a slap in the face to all victims everywhere. And he's also made it clear that he believes that this was a mafia hit when it clearly wasn't. He lies and says that the brothers took Jose and Kitty's kneecaps out, but that is not true. We have photos from the crime scene that we can see that that is clearly not true. So it has been an experience watching Nathan Hochman try to gaslight the public about the facts of the case. And if you don't follow the case, you would probably believe him. But since we have followed the case, we've watched the first trial, we're currently reading through the second trial transcripts, and we've been going through all of the resentencing documents, the habeas corpus, and the clemency experience. We're following along with all of those three paths that they have to freedom. This particular path, the resentencing, as I said, it's finally happened. This resentencing hearing has been rescheduled multiple times. Once because the former administration was leaving office and they gave the new administration, Nathan Hochman, time to review the case. Then there were the wildfires. Then Nathan Hochman tried to um, halt the most recent hearing that got rescheduled. Well, and the defense was like, you know what, we're gonna try to recuse this a-hole, but then they changed their mind, and now we're here. They didn't want to Mark Garagos has said that he didn't want to keep delaying the resentencing hearing because it's already been pushed back so much, but I think he trusted his instincts and it was right because Judge Jessic did resentence the brothers. They no longer have the sentence of life without the possibility of parole. It is now 50 to life. So there were other possibilities. He could have changed their sentence to manslaughter, which would have made them immediately eligible for release. Unfortunately, that was not the path that he took, but he did see, based on there were multiple people that testified in the hearing yesterday. This was supposed to be a 2-day hearing, by the way, but after the end of one day, the judge was like, you know what, I've heard enough, and here's my decision. And he made the decision very quickly. And it's amazing and awesome for the Menendez and Anderson family. So, congratulations to all of them. And congratulations to Eric and Lyle for being the stand up individuals in prison that they have been, that has given them the opportunity to do this. This is like a brand new, by the way, this kind of path for incarcerated individuals to get to possibly have the potential to be released. This is a new thing. So these are like the first Eric and Lyle are the first individuals to receive this kind of ruling in this particular setup of this case of how this 26 because of the new statute whatever in California they committed the crimes under the age of 26 so they were eligible to be looked at for resentencing and here we are today and they have now been resentenced. So without further ado, that was kind of a long-winded whatever, but there's been a lot going on, so I wanted to give you kind of an update. So let's get to the press conference. This was right after the resentencing hearing. Mark Garagos comes out with the family, and they gave a press conference, and let's hear it, shall we? Please hit the like button also as we get started here. Oops, let me skip a little. I should have been more prepared. Sorry, guys. Hold on. All right. I should have just given it one more second because we're right here.
Hey, so it really has been a remarkable couple of years. This month, actually, 2 years ago, and I don't know where Cliff went, but there he is. Hold on, come here, Cliff. Come here.
Cliff Gardner, the other attorney for the brothers.
Only when Cliff gets up here.
Hey guys.
Cliff Gardner. 2 years ago, Cliff and I were talking about another case, and he mentioned the Menendez brothers, and it was a case that I obviously had followed. And he said he had prepared and he was about to file a pro per, believe it or not, writ of habeas corpus. 2 years ago, I said, well, you know what, Cliff, we talked about it. We enjoy working together, now have an undefeated record, continue to have. And we decided, let's do it. I don't think he, who does nothing but post-conviction work, or me, who I hate doing post-conviction work, ever thought 2 years later we'd be standing here after 35 years with this wonderful family who I've grown to love like my own family. And now we see the pot at the end of the rainbow, so to speak, or their freedom. I want to do a hat tip to Judge Jessic, who was able to cancel out all the noise surrounding this, all of the grandstanding, all of the political back and forth. And he did what the code section said he should do. He did what justice said should happen. And he struck the special circumstance and he sentenced them to 50 to life, which means they're immediately eligible. For those who don't know,
So they are eligible for parole immediately. They still have to go before a parole board. And then the parole board will make a decision. Governor Newsom could always also step in and deny or give them clemency. So that's always a possibility as well.
in a couple of weeks, there is already a clemency hearing set. There's also a response due in the habeas next month.
Yes.
Next month, and so all bets are still on. The resentencing has happened. I actually made a call. First call I made was to Leslie Abramson. I couldn't get a hold of Leslie. It went straight to voicemail.
I really want to hear what Leslie has to say after all these years because she has made comments later, like recently, saying like no amount of TikTok likes or shares or whatever is going to get them out of prison. So he's kind of joked around with her about that. But him and Leslie, I believe, know each other or have, been around each other throughout their careers. But also, she was the uh, lead attorney for both trials in 1993 and 96 for the brothers, and she represented Eric for both trials.
I have long admired Leslie. I think about her often in this courthouse, actually, because one of the last trials she did was in this courthouse. She did say something a number of years ago that no amount of TikTokers was going to ever change anything. And so I was calling to tease her. And so, Leslie, I will tell you, it's a whole different world we live in now. And it one of the things that I think is important is to recognize that, like the legislature has done, we have evolved. This is not the 90s anymore. We have a more robust understanding of a lot of things. And I hat tip to the family, and I'll let them, after we answer a couple of questions, speak about what this means to them. I just know that on a day like today, that redemption is possible. And to those, you saw X-rated talk today, you saw kind of the ridiculous nature of the cross-examination. You can turn anything on its head. The fact is, the Menendez brothers have done remarkable work, and today is a great day after 35 years.
Did you talk to Erik and Lyle really quick after this? What's the reaction?
I told them to call me on their burner phone.
So that's a funny joke if you're not aware. Nathan Hawkman keeps saying, like, oh, they're such a threat. The brothers are such a threat. They got recently caught with cell phones. Like, cell phones is their big infraction in prison. Give me a break. Nobody gives a crap that they had a cell phone. That doesn't mean that they're going to commit crimes.
I want, I argued, and I still believe that they should be out. I,
Who are you?
I,
What's your name?
Mark Garrigus, how are you? Hi. So
Got a heckler.
they, yeah, no, that's, I understand what's happening. The governor would only have that ability constitutionally if the parole board does it. Right now, what is pending is, because it's 50 to life, they're immediately eligible. The first thing that is set is the clemency hearing, which is, I believe, on June 13th. So the clemency board, and this is something new, will make a recommendation to the governor, and then the governor will take action either before or after. So, yes, Jim.
People thought when you around Thanksgiving you said I want them to be home by then, and people said it's never going to happen. You said they will be resentenced. This is a huge victory for you and for the family. Clearly, what do you think a realistic timeline is now to finally see?
He basically talked a lot until his question was, what's a realistic timeline for all this to take place?
I've said ever since my failed prediction of Thanksgiving dinner that 2025 would be their year. I mean, they got caught. Ironically, they've been caught in politics 30 years ago in a DA's race. They got caught in politics now in 2024, and I'm hopeful now that Judge Jessic did what he was supposed to do, and I'm hopeful that now that that the right thing will be done and they'll walk out. You know, they've got a family, and I think the takeaway for me today was that the family, this has become, their trauma has become kind of the subject of prurient interest. But they are a real family, real people who have lived through unimaginable horrors. And I'm hopeful and glad that we're one huge step closer to bringing the boys home. Thanks. Yes.
Are you concerned at all that this could get held up on an appeal? Could you talk about an appeal?
No, I'm not concerned with that. I think at this point,
I think her question was, are you concerned at all with an appeal, with Hawkman appealing, which is always a possibility. And even if they do, I don't think it's going to go anywhere because Judge Jessic has ruled, and I don't think he's going to change his mind. So, well, it would be up to the higher courts, but I don't think they're going to change their minds either because, or overrule Judge Jessic because he followed the law. So there's no real concern about this resentencing of 50 to life being appealed at this time.
At this point,
Not that they won't try, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be successful.
the record is such that the code section calls for this. This was from my mind, this was the minimum that they should get. It also, somebody mentioned this to me in the courtroom just now. This is a decision that I think will reverberate in the criminal justice system. One of the things that we have argued all along, and what the judge said today, the judge commented today, this is one of the most remarkable, and he used that term, remarkable transformations. And he said, while the crime was truly horrific and remarkable, the 35 years since, what they have accomplished is remarkable, with no hope. And we've said that since day one. And so, with no hope, this encourages people who are incarcerated to make the right decisions, to take the right path. So it's just a win-win on so many levels. And I will let the family talk. I could not, yes.
Mark, Mark,
I have not talked yet to Joan, but I'm hoping I'll let the family say that. I'll let the family say that.
I need to smoke a cigarette. Mark,
Who is that heckling? Thank goodness.
Hi everyone.
Mark,
This is a good day.
It's Mr. Hockman's PR person.
Mark.
No, can you do me a favor? No, I don't have a light. He does right there. Right. You're welcome. You tell Mr. Hockman does. He's right over there. He's hiding in the bushes.
We have a lot of thank yous today from the family. Mark Garagos, Cliff Gardner. Thank you so much. You have brought hope to this family that we didn't see coming.
You know, we would be remiss if I didn't thank Alexandra Kazarian, my partner who's here behind me, if I didn't thank Milena Blake and Mike Romano. And there's Milena back there. I apologize for Milena. It's got to be tough to sit at the council table and have me there kind of bulldoze my way through. So I said I thank X-Rated for having to subject himself to that brutality. But most of all for the family. I just couldn't be happier for you guys. It really is tremendous. Thank you. Talk to them.
This is the step in the right direction, but is there any worry or hesitation at all about the brothers facing the parole board?
Okay, yes.
I don't know what the question was.
So, right, this is a step towards the parole process. Of course, June 13th, they will meet with the parole board. And, you know, in the state of California, it's a pretty stringent process. So we are very hopeful. I thanked Mark. I thanked Cliff. There is an entire legal team. But ultimately, we are here today with this result because of Erik and Lyle, because they chose to live their lives with clarity and a purpose of service that the judge was impressed by. And so a huge thanks to them, too, for being the kind of people that we could bring home.
What is it like for you to hear the brothers speak in their own words and say in no uncertain terms, what did you do?
Question is, what is it like to hear the brothers in their own words under no uncertain terms, probably like apologizing or something along those lines?
It was very moving. I think everybody in the courtroom was moved by that. They've said those words to me personally before.
Brothers were allowed to say statements. So I know she testified. This is Anna Maria Baralt, one of the cousins, another cousin right here, Tamara Goodell. She also testified. This is Diane Vandermolen, also, or Diane, I think Menendez is her last name now. I'm not sure. But she used to be Vandermolen. And behind Anna Maria Baralt is X-Rated. The rapper X-Rated. Honore Brown is his real name. I goes by X-Rated as his rapper name, and he was incarcerated with Eric and Lyle, and they pushed him towards his freedom and release and rehabilitation. So um, he owes a lot to them. And he also testified. I believe there was another. There were like corrections officers and things like that. We'll read a whole article about who did testify and what happened in the courtroom, but I wanted to bring you the press conference first because it's happy times.
Before, that was not the first time that I had heard them take full accountability for their actions, for the effect that it had on my life, and express that. So I'm glad everyone else got to hear it. I haven't talked to them yet. Yes. I couldn't really see. I mean, they're on a screen, so I couldn't really see facial reactions, but I imagine that they will be pleased from today. Yes, so for my Spanish-speaking reporters, you have a treat today, which is my cousin Marta is going to follow me, and she is going to speak to you in Spanish. So you'll get the full thing and answer questions as well for anyone who is talking and speak. And what's next? Well, we still have, we have to go through the parole process, which is going to be very difficult for the family. That is a difficult process for the family to go through. We were certainly hoping for manslaughter, time served, so that we wouldn't have to go through this process, but we will eagerly step through those doors if that means getting them home. So also I want to say a thank you before I forget to Judge Jessic for being fair, for reading the law as it was written, like Mark said, for not getting caught up in the drama of the situation, but for simply applying the law. So grateful to him as well. I am so happy that I wore waterproof mascara is how I'm feeling, because I have been crying all day long. So these are tears of joy for sure, and we're very excited. Yeah. Thank you. Can you hold on until Marta talks? Thank you so much. Yeah.
Dígame, mi nombre es Marta Cano Hallowell. Yo soy.
I'm going to skip through her just because she's going to speak in Spanish. So, all right. Up next is Tampa.
Muchas gracias y deja de allá.
I just really want to thank Judge Jessic, Mark Garagos, Mike Romano, Alexandra Kazarian, Milena, Cliff Gardner, all of them. This is something my grandmother Joan has fought for 35 years. I really wish she was here today, but I'm really excited to give her the news. Beyond that, I really hope that this sets the precedence for other LWOP inmates who have shown transformation and change and have done the same as Erik and Lyle, and created careers for themselves and created new hopes for themselves while they have been incarcerated. So with that, thank you for everybody's support.
All right, Diane. All right. Hi, good afternoon, good evening.
Step up to the mic.
De nada. Numb. No sé, no, estoy muy feliz y con esperanza, por fin. La primera vez en 94 se me hace, fue una injusticia y hoy un milagro. Está.
Okay, I thought she was going to speak English.
You know, back, you wanted to, no sé más que decir. You wanted to ask me a question?
She can take questions in English.
You know, during the trial, the second trial, the defense was stripped of their entire defense. and was an injustice. Their decision, the judge's decision, it was unjust. And today, Judge Michael Jessic followed the law, followed reasoning, and gave a hopeful resolution to this finally after 35 years.
Jay, what did you tell Judge Jessic today? And I mean, obviously he heard your message. What did you tell him? Why?
I asked him to be merciful because they have transformed themselves from the dark days when they were early on, when they were first sentenced to prison without hope, in despair, and from that they have blossomed into incredible human beings. They are remarkable men, and they are strong individuals, and all they want is to service and to help and to create positive consequences to every action. That's all they want. And I am 150% sure that when they are released, they will continue on that path. None of us believe that it would be anything less.
And just saying, if and when they're released, what would they like to do with their futures?
Continue giving service back to the community, helping other programs, widening the scope of the programs that they have going at Donovan, and servicing the same programs, growing that into other prisons as well.
So the beautification project.
Yes, yes. The green, yes, exactly.
All those programs that they started in prison, they want to continue them. They want to see them through, and I think that's amazing. And I believe that they will.
Give the floor to Honoré.
Hmm?
Can we give the floor to Honoré?
Yes. I would like to, at this point, give the floor to Honoré.
Sweet. Great job.
Mhm.
Hello, everyone. My name is Honoré Brown, Anerae Brown, like the color. I'm the person they refer to as X-rated. A lot of people, there's a lot of information out there about my personal experience being incarcerated with Lyle and Erik, ultimately having them come to be mentors for me, and even me becoming a sponsor for Erik as a life prisoner with 31 to life, becoming a youthful offender, seeing the laws change, and ultimately being free. Doing the CRA exam myself, going through the board myself, I can assure everyone here that the brothers will do a great job when they get to board. I'm very proud of them for continuing in this way to lead. When I say that they're leading, what I mean is that the fact that they pursued so many different rehabilitative opportunities, that they instituted so many different programs and made it this far, is going to produce a sort of hope in a hopeless environment that people have never seen. And I know those jaded types who would like to say that this is some special thing and it doesn't apply to everyone. Me standing here being free is a statement to the contrary on that. It is, in fact, going to have a positive impact on that environment. People who wouldn't have went to rehabilitative programs, who wouldn't have done self-help because they were hopeless, can now believe that if they do the right things and that they do it with great consistency, that they can see a positive outcome similar to this. And so this is a victory for
I mean, isn't that what prison's supposed to be? It's about reform and rehabilitation. It's not supposed to be lock them up and throw away the key, but our society has become that, and I don't understand. And if someone has proven themselves time and time again to be rehabilitated, then what justice does it serve to keep them behind bars? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
For restorative justice, this is a victory for other people who have changed their lives in that hopeless circumstance, and will have an opportunity to be able to go to board themselves if they keep doing the right thing.
I have a question. If you had not met Lyle and Erik in prison, do you think you would still be in prison?
I would still be in prison, in my humble opinion. I believe that the behaviors that I was engaging in as a gang member, as somebody who was hopeless with a life sentence, I believe that I would have made my change as a result of the implementation of the law, like a lot of people have done. And ultimately, they're still there because their change can be questioned. When there's positive reinforcement, I don't like to tell people that I have something good for them when I ask them if they would like to participate, because if they knew, they might only accept the opportunity for the reward. So I like the fact that, you have people who make a decision to change, and it's an inherent thing. And I had that opportunity, and I believe that if not for Lyle and Erik, I may not have believed that for myself as early as I did, to allow me to have already been living that life when the law changed, instead of being motivated after it changed. I'll take anything that'll cause someone who's done something horrible to sincerely want to change their lives. Whatever we can do to tip that domino for them, I'll take it. However, for those who decided to do it when there was no hope, I think that's a greater statement about the sincerity of their change.
I'm curious what you thought of their statements today. This is the first time the public has been able to hear from them during these hearings. What did you hear when they spoke?
As someone who communicates with them frequently and still has spent more time with Lyle and Erik than I have with my mother, even though I've been free for 7 years, right? I knew that about them, that they had accepted responsibility, that they, even in an itemized way. So I thought I was more happy that they had an opportunity for other people to hear it, because it's a very consistent thing with them.
So what was it like for you to hear the DA consistently pounding them that they hadn't accepted responsibility when you knew that they already had?
That was very challenging for me, but I think it was rewarding, the fact that after they had given an itemized statement of their insight, their remorse, very specific, what they were remorseful for, what they had insight for, how they felt about the way they'd impacted the family, for him to stand up and still repeat the fact that they had no insight, that they didn't understand and weren't accepting responsibility, highlights the fact that there was nothing that anyone could say that would have changed their tune. That was their song, and they were going to sing it. All right, thank you.
I believe that's it. So that's the press conference. Now, there's a couple other interviews that I found that I thought might be interesting. So this is Cliff Gardner being interviewed, and Robert Ryan, and X-rated, I believe. Yeah.
Because on this history-making day here in Van Nuys, the headline right now, according to defense attorney Cliff Gardner, tears and smiles. That was the reaction from Lyle and Erik Menendez when they realized what happened here today.
It was. We only had a few seconds with them, but that was the reaction.
What did they do exactly, Cliff?
They had tears and they were smiling, and I only had about 20 seconds with them.
Okay, Cliff, in your opinion, what was sort of the change and the reason why the judge came to this decision?
Sure. I think on balance, the judge looked at 35 years of extraordinary in-custody work that both Lyle and Erik did. He looked at the horror of the crime, which he didn't shy away from, and he basically said what I tell my clients' families all the time: no one's the worst thing they've ever done in their life, and no one's the best thing. And he looked at both, and he balanced them, and he reached a just decision.
And even you're surprised that this is over in one day when we expected it to be two. Explain the reasons why.
Well, it's not over. We still have a lot of work to do, because it's going to go before the parole board, and there's a clemency proceeding left, so it's by no means over. We did anticipate the hearing would take 2 days. It took 1 day because all the parties were willing to speed things along.
Okay. Let's talk about the timeline here, because we know that they're eligible for parole. As you said, first things first, June 13th, clemency hearing, Governor Newsom?
Yes, that's the first thing that will happen. There'll be a June 13th clemency hearing. The governor may decide on June 13th. He could conceivably decide earlier. He could conceivably decide later. So we don't know exactly when the governor will decide, or if at all. If he decides to not move on to clemency, that's possible too.
If the governor
So the June 13th is already scheduled for clemency, but they might just change it to be the resentencing. We don't know yet, and that part needs to be determined.
does not move on the clemency, when do you anticipate a parole hearing then to take place?
Okay.
How long?
The guys are immediately eligible for parole because they were 18 years old and 21 years old at the time of the crime, and they've served 35 years. So they're immediately eligible for a parole board hearing. How soon that'll get scheduled is entirely up to the parole board. I don't know what their schedule is. I don't know how busy they are, but I would hope that they would have a parole board hearing within 90 days. But that's just a guess on my part.
But you're guessing the soonest would be 90 days.
Could it be 89? Sure, Robert. But I'm guessing, I'm hoping it would be within 90 days.
Cliff, extraordinary day for you.
It's a great day for the family and for Erik and Lyle, and it's been 35 years, and we've worked hard for it, and I couldn't be happier for the family.
Cliff Gardner, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure seeing you
Good
again.
to see you.
Be well.
Take care, bud. I want to bring in another important player here. The man standing next to me is Robert Rand. To refresh your memory, Robert Rand was the co-executive producer of a documentary that you can watch on Peacock right now. Correct me if I'm not giving the title.
Menendez plus Menudo, Boys Betrayed.
Okay, and it was Robert Rand that came across a letter that Erik wrote to his cousin, a letter he found in Miami where Erik allegedly talks about sexual abuse at the hands of his father. This is the man who has also written a best-selling book about the Menendez brothers. I bring you in, Robert, because for you have personally become very, very close to Erik and Lyle Menendez, and you just described them as being very emotional today.
It was an incredible ending to the afternoon, seeing them talk and give us statements and explain themselves and really take responsibility, which they have done in the past. They've expressed remorse, but today was the most dramatic moment of the entire 35 years.
Congratulations to you. Honore, I'm going to bring in Honore right now as we've been... If there was a moment today that Robert was explaining to me and others were explaining to me, it was perhaps delivered by this man. This is Honore Brown. He is a former inmate, a former fellow inmate of Lyle Menendez, a former fellow inmate of Erik Menendez. Yes. You, sir, in tears today while you were testifying. Explain to our viewers, when it comes to the Menendez brothers, what they meant to you while you were behind bars.
I believe that the meeting them was the impetus for, everything that happened in my life after that, including being free, the father of my children, my career, everything, and by the grace of God. So, to me, it's a full circle moment to be able to stand up for them, to champion them and speak on their behalf when they did so much to make sure that I could be free when it was my turn.
Honore, you talked about going to Menendez University.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, when it was time for me to do self-help groups, to go to anger management, things like that, the Life Care and Hospice program, they just made sure that I did everything I was supposed to do and that all of the certificates and chronos ended up in my central file to represent the change in my life. They made it a point to do it.
You also talked about how you were with Lyle and Erik.
With nothing in return. They didn't want anything in return. They just wanted to help him get rehabilitated, to get out of prison. That's all. It's amazing that the brothers have steadfastly been so adamant about the rehabilitation of others and never had a possibility to be released until now. So it's pretty mind-boggling that they're so selfless and have made so many sacrifices for others.
Erik Menendez, how they both expressed redemption, how they both expressed remorse for what happened. Can you fill us in on
that's
that?
better.
Well, certain groups that we attended, the insight workshops, the meditation groups, it would come up in the ways that it could. You know, we never got too specific, but you could always tell, especially when they spoke about the impact that their actions had on their family, you could always tell how remorseful they were.
Honoré, just quickly, what does this moment mean for you?
It means everything. Having gone to board and went through that process, I can assure everyone that Lyle and Erik will do a great job when they get there. And it means to me that we're one step closer to freedom, truly one step closer to freedom.
Honoré Brown, thank you for joining us. Robert Rand, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being on this entire experience with us, starting when we first interviewed Lyle Menendez over in prison way back in 2017. We appreciate it. And I know this is an important day for you. And this is, as Cliff Gardner just said, this is a day to be marked in history. The Menendez brothers may soon find the freedom that they have been asking for now for several months. Freedom that Lyle Menendez told us in 2017, Colleen and Carolyn, to quote him, he said he won't even let himself think about it. Now they can not only think about it, they can look to the future and know that it may be an inevitability. Let's go back to
Wow, that's amazing. Okay. Up next, no, I can't escape.
this because on this.
Whoops. Hold on. Let me flip screens here. All right, that's better. This is the next clip I wanted to show you is a really brief interview with Alexandra Kazarian. She's another attorney that has been on this case, and this is her interview with News Nation
Lyle and Erik
yesterday.
Menendez have been dreaming about this day for decades, thinking about it for years, planning for it for months, and it is finally here. It was a big day. Both brothers were resentenced just a couple hours ago from life in prison without parole to 50 years to life. And the change is a big deal because it makes them eligible for parole under California's youthful offender law since they committed their crime when they were under the age of 26. It is their best chance yet for being released after serving 35 years in prison for murdering their parents. Now, today's hearing was expected to last 2 days, but the judge made his decision after hearing from the brothers' family, a retired judge, a former inmate who served time with Lyle and Erik, and the brothers themselves. Prosecutors who opposed resentencing, they didn't call any witnesses. I'm joined now by one of the brothers.
So the prosecutors who fought like dogs to get this resentencing to no longer take place, they tried to get it off the table, didn't have a single soul that they called to testify that Erik and Lyle were a danger to society, shouldn't be released, blah, 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 blah. Nothing. So all that hot air out of Huckman's mouth and nothing to back it up.
Attorneys and a familiar face on this program, Alexandra Kazarian. Alexandra, thank you for being with us. So what happens next now? I think a lot of people were expecting the brothers to just walk out today.
That would have been fun. I would have brought them right here with me. Well, yeah. I guess probably we wouldn't have come here because this is my office. We'd be coming to you live from somewhere fun, right? Yeah. No, we've got a hearing coming up on June 13th. We'll see what happens there. It may be converted into a parole hearing. We'll see. I'm not exactly sure what is going to happen on that day, but we've got a hearing scheduled for the 13th. So let's see. Fingers crossed. You know, this was the first step in a long journey, but it was great. I guess it wasn't the first step, but it was one step in a long journey, and we're on our way.
It's a big step. Let's be honest. This is a big hurdle that they had to get across, and it took a lot of determination and will to fight to get here, especially with Huckman in office now.
It's really exciting.
So, Alexandra, it's a parole board from what I've read, and also the governor who will now make the final decision. Is there any indication, I'm sure you guys have done research with this parole board, how they're feeling, which way they're leaning? Like, do we have any clue of what they might be thinking?
I'm not inside anybody on the parole board's head, but I can tell you if Erik and Lyle Menendez are not suitable for parole, then nobody is. I mean, they are literally today. I know you guys didn't have cameras in the courtroom, but Mark Garagos was telling the court that when you read the law of resentencing, it reads like the Menendez brothers case. It looks like somebody took the Menendez brothers and wrote a law that should apply just specifically to them. So
Wow.
they are suitable for parole. I can tell you that right now. They are ready to be paroled, and it's just a matter of getting to that hearing.
Yeah, and you mentioned cameras were not allowed in the hearing today, which is why we can't see it or hear it for ourselves. But the brothers did speak. What did they? What's a little bit of what they said, and how are they feeling tonight? I imagine this has got to be emotional for them.
Yeah, their statements, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Everybody was crying. They both did what they've been doing for years, which was expressing real, sincere remorse for their actions, talking about how they understand what they did and how devastating it was to their entire family. They thank their families for all the support that they've given them. And it was just very, very deep, very moving, very personal statements about the insight that they have into their crime and about the rehabilitation that they've gone through in this last 35 years.
Were you surprised that the prosecution didn't call any witnesses? Because I was just thinking, I mean, they've had these big press conferences and made such a big deal about this entire thing, and then to not even call a witness, was that unexpected?
No, it was not unexpected. I knew what was happening. Mark knew what was happening. Our entire team knew what was happening. I think that they were hoping, honestly, that we wouldn't get to this point because they knew that there wasn't a single witness that they could call. There was not one single witness that would ever get on the stand and testify that Erik and Lyle Menendez are not suitable for parole, that they don't have insight, that they've done anything untoward. I mean, their biggest argument is that they had a cell phone in jail. I can promise you that if I went to jail or prison in the 90s, and now in the era of TikTok and Instagram, if somebody gave me a cell phone and told me that I could have access to that kind of world, do you think that anybody in their right mind would say, oh no, sorry, no, thank you?
And Lyle, if you remember, even back in the day, like he's a very social person and he talks to his cousin Anna Maria multiple times daily. Like he talks to people on the phone multiple times. You got nothing else to do in prison and you got a tablet nowadays and you can call people. So he spends a lot of time talking on the phone. So why would it be unheard of that he would want a cell phone where he could have internet access and do those kinds of things as well? So I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal that they had cell phones. Even if it was as recent as this year, who cares? That doesn't make them violent offenders and capable of, committing another crime. I think that they have proven insight, and I don't believe them a threat to society.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that they really have been arguing this entire time that Erik and Lyle Menendez are likely to commit a super strike because they possessed a cell phone in jail. There's no witness that they had that could come in and testify to their arguments that they were making. And, I think that the DAs that were in court were told that they had to argue certain things and they tried their best to do it. But no, I was not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've done a lot of stories. A lot of inmates have cell phones in prison. I think in jail. I think a lot of people would be surprised. There's a whole thing that goes on where they get the cell phones in through the guards and stuff. So that didn't really surprise me. But listen, regardless of how people feel about this case, you guys have worked hard, and this is a huge win for you. So congratulations to the legal team, Alexandra Kazarian.
So if the guards are the ones bringing in the cell phones, then why are they not being punished? Why is that not being an issue? I mean, not that I want them to be punished, but if the issue is the guards are bringing them in, then maybe you need to do a better job about controlling the guards and not being mad that Erik and Lyle had a cell phone because your guards let them in. It's so ridiculous of an argument. But okay. So those are the clips that I wanted to show you. I did have a Rolling Stones article that I wanted to read to you. Let me switch screens here a second. Okay, this is Rolling Stone Menendez brothers give stunning statements, win possibility of parole. Quote, I make no excuses. Eric and Lyle Menendez were resentenced to 50 years to life for the 1989 shotgun slings of their parents. This is written by Nancy Dillon, and it was written yesterday. Eric Menendez and his brother Lyle from the 1992 trial. That's a picture of them. Eric and Lyle Menendez are now a huge step closer to possibly going home. Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Michael Jessic recalled the brothers' sentences of life without parole in a dramatic reversal of fortune at a court hearing Tuesday. He then resentenced the brothers to 50 years to life, making them immediately eligible for parole in connection with the 1989 shotgun slayings of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. The brothers each addressed the court before hearing their fates. Quote, I make no excuses and offer no justification, Lyle said in a lengthy statement appearing by video from his prison in San Diego. I take full responsibility for my choices. The choice to confront my dad about the abuse. The choice to keep my family secret instead of asking for help. The choice to stay instead of leave. The choice to buy guns and ammunition. The choice to point a gun at my mom and dad and shoot them. The choice to reload, return to the den, and run up to my mom on the floor and shoot her again. So, as you can see, Honore was talking about hearing an itemized listing of all the things that they've taken accountability for. Well, that's what they did in their statements. They've gone through, I'm sure they've had to relive it over and over and over again in their minds. And they've taken responsibility for their actions that they didn't do correctly in society's eyes. So, his voice quivering, Lyle also expressed regret for his choice after his arrest to make a mockery of the criminal justice system by soliciting perjury. It was a jaw dropping moment considering prosecutors stated over and over earlier in the day that the brothers did not deserve resentencing because they had not admitted that they asked people to lie for them to cover their tracks. Deputy District Attorney Habib Balian specifically accused Lyle of having attempted to recruit a former girlfriend, Jamie Pisarcik, to falsely testify that Jose had drugged and violently arred her. Lyle said Tuesday that he spent the last 35 years trying to understand who I was and why I made those horrific choices. He said he was immature, impulsive, emotionally isolated, and in a codependent relationship with his younger brother, Erik, with whom he shared the traumatic bond of allegedly having been essayed by their father. I don't think that's alleged. It is pretty much not contested other than Nathan Hogman says it doesn't happen, and Pamela Bazanich says that men don't have the equipment to be AR'd, but that's not really refuting when there was multiple family members and friends who testified. That's evidence. That is evidence. Their testimony is evidence that there was bad things happening in that house. So to say it's alleged at this point is also a slap in the face to victims. Rolling Stone. Quote, my choice to buy guns did not come from logic or reason. I was scared, but also filled with rage. I'm so sorry I didn't ask for help. I should have trusted someone, a relative, the police, a parish priest, he said. At the end of the statement, Erik leaned over and placed a hand on Lyle's shoulder before addressing the court next. Aw, I love these brothers and their bond. It's really sweet. Even though, like, they've been trauma bonded, you know? They've been through something together that no one else has been through and no one else has experienced other than each other. So, I mean, they really, there's a good reason why they might have had a codependent relationship. All right, Erik says, on August 20th, 1989, I committed an atrocious act of brutality, he said after putting on his glasses. My actions were criminal. They were also selfish, cruel, and cowardly. I have no excuse. Eric said he feels responsible like no one else, even though he was barely 18 years old at the time. I reached out to my 21-year-old brother and convinced him we couldn't escape. I'm the one who was too ashamed to turn to my family or anyone else. Instead, I bought guns and ammunition and barged into the den where my parents were and fired all 5 rounds. I went back out to the car to get more ammunition and didn't stop until my parents were dead. Reading from a written statement like his brother, Eric admitted he concocted an alibi about having been at a movie theater and did everything he could to get away with the crimes. He apologized to his family members for having stolen Jose and Kitty, uh, and said that he plans to spend the rest of his life helping others. So like he took their lives, he stole their lives from the world. After the judge rendered the new sentence and ending the hearing, Eric smiled and waved to relatives in the courtroom. Lyle, sitting beside him, nodded to the group visible to him via a courtroom camera. 3 of the relatives had testified earlier in the day asking Judge Jessic to release the brothers on time served. Outside the courtroom, family members expressed their hopes the parole process will move swiftly. I'm very emotional. They deserve release. I hope the parole board will grant it on June 13th at their hearing. It would mean the world to our family and my mom to see them, cousin Diane Vandermolen tells Rolling Stone. In morning testimony, she and 2 other cousins took the witness stand and said that the brothers had accepted responsibility for their actions and were not a danger to society. On both sides of the family, we believe that 35 years is enough, cousin Anna Maria Baralt testified. They are universally forgiven by everyone in our family, and we are very hopeful that they can get a second chance at life. Erik, 54, and Lyle, 57, have spent the last 35 years behind bars for the grisly homicides inside of the family's mansion. After an initial televised trial ended with 2 hung juries, 1 for each brother, Lyle and Erik were convicted of homicide at a follow-up trial and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole in 1996. At trial, the brothers said they suffered years of SA at the hands of their father and believed their parents had plans to take their lives to keep a lid on the family's dark secret. Prosecutors argued the brothers acted out of greed, resorting to homicide to get their multi-million-dollar inheritances before being cut off by their parents' will. In her testimony Tuesday, cousin Diane Vandermolen recounted some of what she told jurors during the brothers' first trial. She recalled how Lyle had shared with her when he was a child that his father had been molesting him. She also described the hallway rule inside the Menendez family home. Her testimony about the alleged SA was not allowed at the second trial. So that's a difference that we haven't gotten to her testimony yet in the read through, but that's a difference there. She wasn't allowed to talk about that apparently in the second trial. If you recall from the first trial, she was staying down there, or she was staying with the family for about a month or so. Kitty was like, I think her favorite aunt or something. Like she was staying with Kitty and whatever. And they always invited like cousins and stuff to stay with them for long periods of time. So Diane stayed there and she was staying, I think, in the basement or wherever her room was. It was down because she said Lyle came down from his room and then he asked like, "Can I sleep in here with you because I don't want I'm afraid of my dad and he's touching me." And I believe he pointed to his private area, and she told Kitty immediately. Kitty reacted with, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not what he said, and that's not happening." And basically, like, shrugged it off and got mad at Diane, and it like really affected Diane later on in life, thinking like she could have done something more. Now knowing what was really going on, so that was part of Diane's experience in that household, and she knew about the hallway rule. When Jose was with one of the boys, you weren't allowed to go down the hall, she testified Tuesday. She said no one dared challenge Jose because he was incredibly intimidating. She explained that while Kitty once had been like a second mother and mentor to her, Kitty's personality greatly changed, and after she allegedly discovered Jose was having an affair. Jose was so powerful, and Kitty became the enforcer, Vandermolen testified to in a soft voice. She said that Erik and Lyle were scared of their parents when they carried out the grisly slayings. They were afraid, plain and simple. They did not see a way out, she testified. After getting older, they realized now that they would have had other opportunities. Judge Jessic set the crucial hearing last week after LA District Attorney Hawkman tried to derail it. The process was initiated by Hawkman's more liberal predecessor, George Gascon, last October. Gascon said that he considered the brothers' young ages at the time of the homicides. Erik was 18, Lyle was 21, and the brothers' exemplary behavior behind bars. He said they had paid their debts to society and should be eligible for parole immediately. After cousin Tamara Lucera Goodell testified Tuesday that the brothers have been rehabilitated, she pointed to the Green Space Hospice and meditation programs for other inmates that they've started behind bars and asked the judge to strike down their life sentence so her bedridden 93-year-old grandmother, Joan Vandermolen, Kitty's sister, would have a chance to see them in person before she dies. I did not know that she was bedridden. That makes me very sad. She was mobile up until Nathan Hawkman came around. Maybe like in the beginning she was still kind of mobile, and then she got I want to say it was like maybe November, December of last year. She was taken to the hospital with health conditions. We didn't really know details. We just know that she's 93. She probably has some health issues. And she did use a walker when she was out in public. She was very out in public for the brothers. And since then, we have not seen her. So I am very sad to hear that Aunt Joan has been bedridden. And I hope that she gets her wish to hug the brothers from her home before she dies. That's so sad. All right. So for 35 years, we also know that Terry Baralt, Teresita, Aunt Terry, uh, more recently, because of Nathan Hawkman, was uh, basically traumatized into having been rushed to the emergency room, and she's also recovering and won't be making public appearances again. So he's Nathan Hawkman is trying to successfully rid the brothers of their elderly family members, I guess. I have no idea. He's kind of a dick. For 35 years, I have watched my entire family spiral during different conversations about what happened, she testified. I watched my grandmother and my aunts be traumatized. It would help them in their healing. She said her grandmother's family had a long history of abuse in multiple forms. So this is a generational thing, and it would be a good thing for the family generationally for this trauma to be healed if the brothers are released and they can be home with their family. My grandmother moved out at 17 so she would not continue the cycle of abuse, and it was hard for her to learn that that cycle of abuse was continued by her sister in the very forms that she and her sisters survived, she said. Release would bring a lot of closure for all of us. Baralt, whose mother is Jose's older sister, said her elderly mother is ill with stage 4 cancer and hopes that the brothers will be released while she's still alive. We are on borrowed time at this point, so that is Aunt Terry. Joan, who's 93, and Baralt's mother, Teresa Baralt, 85, testified at a hearing last November, and they supported the brothers' release. No child should have to endure what Erik and Lyle lived through at the hands of their father, Joan said on the witness stand. It breaks my heart that my sister Kitty knew what was happening and did nothing about it, and that we knew of. That she did nothing about it that we know of. She said under questioning by Mark Garagos, the lawyer representing the brothers. Anna Maria Baralt testified Tuesday that her entire adult life has been consumed by the relentless scrutiny of the high profile homicides. It has been torture for decades to have to live out the kind of trauma in the public eye, she said. As a relative of both the victims in this case and the perpetrators, the trauma is 360 degrees. Yikes. That makes, I mean, putting it that way makes a whole lot of sense when she says it that way. Baralt said that she has no hesitation supporting release. Asked by a prosecutor if she would have guessed back in the early 1989 that the brothers were capable of killing their parents, she said no. But she added that everyone is older and wiser now. After the hearing, she was wiping tears. I'm so happy, Baralt tells Rolling Stone. I'm glad I wore waterproof mascara. Garagos argued during the hearing that if the brothers had been sisters, they never would have been convicted, if I could talk. Anybody who's got a couple of neurons firing knows that back in the 90s, we had a completely different understanding of CA and SA of children. He said, Garagos said that during the first trial, the men on the jury couldn't bring themselves to vote for the lesser charge of manslaughter, while the women on the jury all voted for manslaughter. So, what does that tell you? He said, understanding the syndrome of domestic DV, sorry, was still in its infancy and almost exclusively female at the time. We didn't talk about male on male CA. I think they should be released today, Garagos argued. This is literally a lifetime ago. When he issued his resentencing, Judge Jessic said the brothers committed an absolutely horrific crime, but he saw no evidence they were at risk of committing another violent felony if released. He said he was greatly influenced by prison officials vouching for the brothers' rehabilitation, as shocking as the crime was. I'm almost equally shocked by some of the letters I've read, mostly from the prisons, Jessic said. I think it's pretty amazing what the defendants have done in prison. And finally, in a statement, Hochman called the resentencing decision a monumental one that has significant implications for the families involved, the community, and the principles of justice. He confirmed the Menendez brothers are immediately eligible for parole, saying any final decision on release will ultimately rest with the state board and the governor. So he did not say anything about an appeal. That doesn't mean that they're not going to try, but he said that it's up to the parole board now. So is he going to step aside? That is something we would all love for him to do, but I don't see him doing that. The parole board hearing is set for June 13th. It was scheduled in connection with the brothers' clemency. So like I said, the June 13th was for clemency review of the risk assessment and that kind of thing. So they might just change it to a parole board hearing, or they may schedule another parole board hearing and do both simultaneously. I don't know. So we shall see, and we'll find out more as time progresses. This is all very new. There's been a lot of information coming in, and that's pretty much the gist of what I have for you for this episode. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you are just as excited as I am that the brothers will have a better likelihood to be released from prison now and to be given a chance to live a free life, free from abuse, free from oppression from the government, oppression from some other individual making all their life choices. Hopefully, they will get a chance to try it again and do it better this time, because I know that they will. And I know that they're going to stick with all the programs that they've initiated while in prison and continue doing them. I know for a fact, I can't remember which one it is. I think it's Lyle who wants to continue doing the green spaces, which means he would have to continue coming back to prison. So his life outside of prison would be going back to prison and helping to rehabilitate others. So I think that that is pretty admirable. So we will see what happens. And everyone, keep your fingers crossed, be hopeful, raise your good thoughts and good vibes, and hope that 2025 sees Lyle and Erik free from prison walls. So thank you again for watching. Please hit that like button, subscribe, all those YouTubey things, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Take care. Bye now.